noise!
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth and Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy. Hey, before we get started with today's show, I just want to draw your attention to new merchandise. Funkin' Stuff and Truth and Rhythm designs are in, and they look pretty darn cool. So show your support, help support the program, and show off some stylish merchandise and apparel. Only at the Funkin' Stuff store. And then Death or Devotion. Well, no, you had one between Totem. That one I thought also a great record. Maybe a little more like Tower of Power-y.
Yeah, we were leaning on the horns a little bit more on that one. And that's the first one that Lyle was with us on. And Lyle's a great writer too. He wrote all the lyrics to all the songs.
Well, this one doesn't have lyrics, I don't think, but Rippin' Herb is like really a fierce instrumental.
Oh yeah, that's one of my songs. And it's called Rippin' Herb because it's sort of like the double entendre where it sounds like a Herbie Hancock song, so I'm ripping off Herbie, but it's also like ripping herbs, like, you know, smoking some weed.
Creedon, it's really cool. That one, to me, I hear some P-Funk influence, I think, in that one.
For sure. Yeah. Garrett wrote that song. See, that's what's so cool about my band is everybody writes, and everybody's got some good songs, you know. Somebody will come in with the idea, and then, you know, we'll put our own little panache on it or whatever, but somebody comes in with a pretty well thought out idea, and I'm lucky I'm in a band with 5 guys who can write.
How long does it typically take in studio to get it where you want it, you know?
Well, we'll try to practice the songs together before, you know, and make sure that the form of the song is correct, you know, and feels good before we go in and record it. We have done songs like in the studio just to like see how that works, but we kind of like to play the songs live, and then you can figure out the form of the song on like reactions, you know, and how it feels.
Cloak and Dagger, love that one. Real horn heavy, pounding kind of funk track.
Thanks. That's another one of my songs. I thought it sounded like a James Bond movie or something, so that's why I called it Cloak and Dagger.
And you mentioned reggae. There's an actual straight up reggae song on that album.
It's reggae, but it's in 3, so it's weird. It's like a reggae waltz.
Yeah. Solar Plexus, also cool. Yeah. And then Kraz helped produce that one. Or,
yeah, he did. Yeah, he has a lot of good ideas, you know, and he actually, I think, even played guitar on one of the songs, and he wrote 2 of the songs.
So is that just something, you know, that blossomed out of a festival you guys did or something? And
well, we've known Kraz a long time, you know, just running in the same circles, and we like his aesthetic, like the way his music sounds, and you know, I think he has good ideas, and so we trusted him to produce our record. I feel like during the making of that record, I learned a lot about production, and that's why I started just within the band, started producing the stuff instead of having an outside producer. But we liked working with Kraz a lot. He's a cool guy.
And then Death or Devotion was the latest one before the one you were just talking about. Another great record. And I think this is the one actually that has a touch of the vocoder
Yeah,
happening. Yeah,
I've got Talkbox on there. Yep.
yeah. That must have been a kick to finally, do something with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of my signature, I guess. I think when people think of me, they think of Talkbox and they think of clavinet.
Yeah, was it What You Gonna Bring? Is that the one?
I think there's a little bit of Talkbox in that one. I sort of just sneak it in there. It's rarely like the feature,
Yeah.
just because I'm not trying to make it like Juno What, like my other project.
Speed of Light, the riff to that reminds me of Abracadabra.
Oh, the Steve Miller song? Yeah, you're right. It does have a similar kind of vibe. That's another one of Ryan Jalbert, our guitar player's songs.
I've marked so many. Kneebone is a really cool, slower funk instrumental.
Yeah, and that one's in 7. Trying to be funky in 7's not easy.
Do you ever say, hey, wait a minute, why are we making it this hard on ourselves?
Well, I think that's what it was. We're like, let's see if we can make 7 funky. That's another Garrett song. And Garrett succeeded because it's still funky, even though it's a 7. Usually 7's not for the dancers.
So after you guys go in there and do your thing, what defines a successful record for the band?
I think it's a success if we can get enough people to listen to it. You can't make money selling records these days. It's been a long time since you could do that. So we just want to get the exposure, as long as enough people listen to it on Spotify. I think that's a success for us. I think because you don't make money selling product like that anymore, that your album is more just like a commercial for your live shows in 2021, So we're hoping, more people will just come out to our shows. Hopefully we get to, get back to as many shows as we were doing, because we definitely cut back. And, now the pandemic's getting all weird again. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I'm sick of it. I got to tell you.
Oof, everybody is. It's not good for anyone.
No, but
or something.
Exactly. My hope is that, the musicians for the most part made the most of the downtime, and that we're going to hear some great, innovative, creative music coming out of it,
For sure. The thing I'm most excited about in the pop world is, Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars came out with some stuff. And both those songs I like.
Yeah, I can't. I'm having a. Let's try
to
remember
the door open or something. And then they just came out with another song last week, and they're both very retro-y, and I like it because, I feel like younger people these days could really benefit from hearing music that's heavily exposed by that early 70s soul music stuff. They don't know that's what it is, but they need to learn that they like that, so that when they hear it, the original stuff, they'll like that as well. And it won't sound like their dad or granddad's music.
Right. Yeah. Take ownership of it. And
I have a
make it their own.
17-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old daughter. And it's like, they listen to pop music, and none of the music that I play really sounds like pop music these days. Maybe some of the stuff these days is kind of 80s-ish, but not really like 80s funk stuff. Except for like that Bruno Mars song, that Uptown Funk song that came out. I was really hoping, since that blew up so much, that more people would just try to do straight funk songs. Didn't really happen, but.
That didn't happen that way, but I do think that it's contributed to a resurgence in general of the music, even if it's not totally mainstream, that there's more young people that are aware of it and maybe trying to play it and going back and listening to some of it. And there's more groups, maybe they're not hitting super big time, but they're doing it.
Right. Well, I think when you decide you want to play funk music, you've already decided, I'm doing this because I love it. It's just like being a jazz musician. Like there's no, you're not gonna make $1 million playing jazz saxophone or whatever. You're doing it because you're obsessed by it. You have to do it. So that's the only reason me and any of the Motet guys or the dumpster funk guys or the lettuce guys, we're not, none of us are doing it for accolades or for money or fame. We're just doing because that's what we do. And I remember when I first met Ivan Neville, I guess it was maybe like 2007. He was explaining to me, he was complaining because he's like, yo, there should be a funk category at the Grammys. I can't believe there's not. This is BS, And that's why they came out with that song, funk's not a dirty word or something like that, or funk's a 4-letter word or something like that. I forget what it's called, but that's what their whole point is. Like, we're out here doing it. We're out here and like, y'all aren't seeing it. And this is killing, and I just saw Dumpster Funk 3 weeks ago. It's incredible. They're always incredible. I can't even believe how great they sounded. Those guys are like my heroes.
They're awesome.
Yeah. And I've really, I'm lucky because they've always been so cool to me and to my bandmates, and they don't have to, and I've always thought they were so cool for that.
So when you're trying to come up with a funky riff on the clav or, something like that, what do you use as inspiration?
Well, usually when I write a song, I start with just like a boom pop on like a drum machine, just something real generic, nothing really dividing it up except for boom, pop, boom, pop. I just decide on a tempo, and then I write a bass line first, because I think funk music is like reggae music in that the bass line can really carry the song. You don't have almost every one of your favorite funk songs has a badass bass line. You can't just have like a overly simple bass line and have it be real funky. So I start with the bass line, and then I write everything else sort of around that. Usually adding clavinet after bass.
Uh-huh. And what about when you're soloing on stage? What goes through your head, and typically, what's your, how do you plot out that solo?
Well, that's the thing. I try to be in the moment. I don't like plan anything. Instead, I, in my mind, think about my favorite singers. I think about Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, Al Green, or whoever I'm thinking of at that moment. I think, what would they sing? And then I play what I think they would sing, and if you can, I like to do it that way, because then if you can play something vocal or lyrical sounding, people can relate to it more than if I was trying to like play a John Coltrane saxophone lick. I think those are amazing too, but I think it's harder for people to relate to you when you're doing that. So when I'm soloing live, I just think of, licks that people would sing. And I just try to talk to the audience musically like that. I try to start somewhere and then take it somewhere, energy wise as well. But if you play too many notes, you're going to lose everybody. And at that point, it's like, what are you even playing for? Except for to hear yourself.
So you talked about playing in rock, years ago. So, how does your approach on a solo differ, if you were playing rock versus the funk?
Well, coming from a guitar background too, I think I sort of play, especially synth solos, because you have the bendy bar, and everything. And I can bend just like a guitar player. I go at a solo like a guitar player would, and I do guitar player licks. If I think, because I can, sometimes when I'm thinking, like, I guess I don't always think about vocalists when I'm singing. Sometimes I do think about guitar players, and I try to play guitar licks on the synth. And again, because you can bend on there, and you can use a wah pedal, I can get a lot of guitar-like tones. And I try to think about all my favorite guitar players, Cornell Dupree or whoever, and I try to play those licks.
You're talking about sort of merging of guitar and keyboard. I think of Ernie Isley, those recordings in the early 70s. I mean, some of those solos he did, I had to do double takes. Is that a keyboard or the guitar?
Oh yeah,
amazing tone that he got.
The fuzz on there and like a flanger. That's Ernie playing drums on most of those songs too, like Footsteps in the Dark and all that stuff. That's Ernie on drums.
He's unbelievable. He's been on the show. I was blessed to have him on the show. And I found out, I don't know if I knew before then, but he also played bass on like It's Your Thing. And
Oh yeah. Oh, he's a genius, man. Genius.
I love the guy. One of my favorite players.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned it, you touched on it there. I feel like not only is there this sort of wave of funk bands that we have now, especially on like the, festival circuit, but there seems to be this sort of camaraderie or brotherhood or kinship, among all the groups. And I think that's really fantastic. Can you speak to that at all? Do you feel that?
Well, I think it is again because, like I said, if you're doing the funk thing, it's because you love it. You already know you're not going to have a #1 record. Chances are, you know what I mean? Bruno Mars came out with a funk song because he already had 8 or 9 #1 hits before that one. So at that point, he could do whatever he wants. I think the reason people like Ivan Neville and Tony Hall and those dubstep funk guys are so cool to people like us Motet guys is because we're all in it together and we're all helping each other. Spreading the word of funk music is helping out each other. I think that if we all were making a whole lot of money and it was the hot shit, that maybe there'd be a little more rivalry going on. I think just naturally because people are people. I think the fact that, we're all on the same circuit, we all got to live with each other. We're all going to be as cool as we can to each other, I think. But plus, I think there's some mutual respect going on. And like, I know at least with the Motet guys, we look up to those Lettuce guys and the Dumpster Funk guys like crazy. We all think they murder and that they're doing it for the right reasons as well. So there's so much respect going on for those guys.
I was going to say, Joey, friendly competition too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think any of those guys are going to be happy if like we're not doing well.
What might be a couple of your favorite tracks within the band's repertoire?
That's the most fun to play.
Yeah.
Well, I really like the song Rippin' Herb just because I get to do my Herbie licks, and I really like, let's see, as far as cover songs goes, we just came out with that And the Beat Goes On by the Whispers, and we had Nigel Hall singing it. And that song is a lot of fun to play. It has some great clavinet on it. And it's a good thing we have 2 keyboard players because there's so much synthesizer stuff going on. It takes both of us. That's a fun one to play. I really like to play that song Nemesis. We do this whole sort of James Brown thing in the middle of it, which is super fun. And I really like the song Death of Devotion, which I wrote because I like doing some real slow funk stuff. A lot of people who think they're doing funk stuff these days. I don't think it's as funky because it's a little too fast. I think there's sort of a threshold of how fast you can be and have it be funk music.
Yes.
Probably around 130 something beats. Because then it gets into house territory after that.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate over, funky versus funk. Right. A lot of things can be funky to different extents versus really being funk.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the difference between being jazzy or being jazz.
I mean, because even, TV jingles started getting a little bit funky, once the 90s came and, so.
Once hip hop became, worldwide, people, all the, most of those beats is the funk stuff that you and I like to listen to, so that's why it's changed like that. I wonder if there ever will be, just a funk, movement ever again, because now there's so many subgenres, it just gets swallowed up by the whole thing,
I'll never say never, but also where are you comparing it to? I mean, I don't think there'll ever be another P-Funk again.
Right. I just think they'll call it dance music now or something. I don't know.
So have you had much of a chance to sit in with other bands and other people, or?
Yeah, I mean, those bands Lettuce and Dumpster Funk, I usually sit in, or if I'm around, if they're playing. As far as like my heroes bands or whatever, I haven't sat in with a whole bunch of people. I have had the pleasure of, opening for like Ohio Players, Tower of Power, P-Funk, all that kind of stuff. Maceo Parker. But I haven't really sat in with any of those guys. Most of the bands I've sat in with are sort of like, again, on the same circuit as us.
So as the Motet, you opened for those bands you mentioned?
Yeah, or my other band, You Know What.
Did you get a chance to meet, Maceo or any of the Ohio Players guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I played with Maceo maybe 4 or 5 different times, and he was always really cool. He's had the same keyboard player for like 30 years too. This organist guy.
Yeah, he's the one that sort of influenced Soul Live to go with the suits look, is what I had found
Really?
out. Yeah. Yeah.
He's funny because he's real funky, but he's kind of stiff up there. He kind of doesn't move.
His phrasing can't be beat in fun.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
he's great.
And that's what I was trying to get to also with your style when you solo, is about, weaving in and around the funk beat, in what you execute.
Yeah, it's what's part about what makes funk is kind of hard to explain, but it not being perfectly on the beat. You have to sort of be around the beat just a little bit for it to be funky. Do you know what I mean? If everything was just quantized or whatever, that's never funky. So there's some weird thing where you learn how to get just in the right spot, a little bit late here, a little bit, more rushing here. You learn these little things that make up what's funky. It's kind of hard to explain.
It is, but man, yeah, there's no feeling that just like it, you can feel it.
Intangible. Is that the word?
It's a good word. Yeah. I like to ask guest Joey to pick their 5 desert island albums, so none can be, the Motet, other groups. So what might be your top 5?
Let's see. Definitely Herbie Hancock. Thrust, I think, is my favorite of his records. I think probably The Aura Will Prevail by George Duke. I think Here My Dear by Marvin Gaye. I think Donny Hathaway Live. And if I had to have one more, I guess it would probably be a Stevie record. And I'd probably go with Songs in the Key of Life, just because it's a double record and I'd get more songs.
Yeah, I often have that debate with people. I usually go with Intervisions, but then with songs you get all that more music.
Yeah. And I saw Stevie play it all live at Red Rocks.
Oh wow.
So I think that's the other reason. Just a few years ago.
Yeah, that must have been phenomenal. I was
did the whole record.
Disappointed he didn't come do that in Charlotte. I grew up in Los Angeles, so I got to go to tons of shows for so many years, and I got very spoiled. But since I've been out here in Charlotte since 2006, it's fewer and far between for sure.
So you go to the Hollywood Bowl?
Oh, everywhere.
Nice.
Greek, Hollywood Bowl, Palace, Palladium, House of Blues, on and on and on and on. Yeah, so many unforgettable shows in Los Angeles. But I did get to see Stevie here once, but he didn't do that whole album, but still just unbelievable. And I saw him once in 1980 in the LA Forum, which is an incredible show.
That's in his prime.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm jealous.
Talk about charisma. Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He's a genius.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen that movie, Summer of Soul. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
I know he does cool clavinet stuff on there. Maybe he does like some drum solo or something.
He does both. Yeah. And the clavinet thing, I don't think I've ever seen him, just jamming away on it like that before. And he's only 19 in the movie.
He did a little more jamming on it in the earlier days. If you see too, in that clip I saw, I haven't seen the whole movie, but I saw the clavinet clip. He's playing instead of like a D6 like this one, he's playing, I think it's called a C1, and it's orange and white. It's like one of their first ones before they had the E7 and the D6. it's not quite as it doesn't have as many controls and stuff. But yeah, he's a genius. Come on.
At one point in that solo, it was years before, but I could hear the beginning of I think You Haven't Done Nothing, like that little
Oh yeah.
effect he does.
Yes.
That's in that solo if you listen for it. Yeah. So what are you most proud of accomplishing thus far, would you say?
What am I most proud of in the producing?
Musically speaking.
I guess producing the last record and this new record that's going to come out. I think that's the stuff I'm the most proud of, because I just sort of had the most control over how it turned out. And when you say you're a producer, it's kind of an ambiguous term, you know, because different producers do different things. Some guys might just check in like for 15 minutes during one session, and then they say they produced the record, you know what I mean? While other guys, every single thing has to pass through their desk, you know, before it gets accepted or whatever. And we do it more like a democracy in the Motet, but I think when it comes to the albums, they sort of let me have the final say. But I'm not going to do anything if somebody else hates it. I'm not going to keep it in there, you know. But I think that the fact that those guys trust me, I guess that's what makes me the most proud about producing these last two records.
How do you sort of decide, you know, in a given track, you know, which instrument maybe is going to, you know, be prominent in the, you know, the bridge or the middle section or what have you?
We usually figure that out collectively together, rehearsing the songs. Like I said, we usually rehearse and play songs out live before we record them, so we know what the best form is going to be. And like what you said, we figure out what instruments are going to be, you know, focused on, and what sounds, tones we use. But we generally keep within, you know, old vintage instruments. We usually don't play any instruments that are newer than like 1980 something. So we try to take those old tones and the old vibe and mix it with modern production.
And do you guys generally try to play stuff straight through, or do you do a lot of Pro Tools or that kind of stuff?
I mean, we play the song down usually. I mean, usually don't do the vocals and the horns and everything at the same time, but as a rhythm section, drums, bass, and the keyboards and guitar, we generally record all that at the same time, and then add layers of stuff after that. And only because to record everything at once is logistically more complicated because of the separation and everything.
If someone asked you, Joey, and I am asking you, to sort of define the Motet sound, what makes it distinctive? How would you describe it?
I'd say that we're like a half instrumental, half vocal band that's very influenced by 70s and early 80s funk music and world beat music. That's a lot of words. So I don't know, how would I say that more succinctly? I don't know. I guess I would just say that we're a funk band. I think that's what but that confuses people. Like if I'm just at the airport and they're like, "Oh, you're a musician. What do you play?" I say funk music, and then they give me this blank look. So then I have to explain what funk music is to strangers. But I guess that's what I would call us, as a funk band.
I've been there so many times explaining funk to people. It gets so tiresome, you know. They'll be like, "Oh, I like funk too. I love you know, like Madonna or something That's like,
you're like, that's not quite there. I mean, you know, what's his name? Neil Rogers or whatever did do her first record, and it's pretty funky. Did you know that? The dude from Chic?
Yeah.
He did the first Madonna record.
Yeah.
With
him and, also Reggie Andrews,
Lucky Star, and all that stuff. That's like, if you listen to the guitar, you can tell.
Yeah, well, that album I didn't mind. That was actually not bad. Yeah. Holiday, you know, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
was a little bit funky.
Absolutely.
We may have sort of covered it, but in a nutshell, what's so special about funk to you? What is it? How does it fulfill you?
Well, for me personally, I think it's because I was so influenced, like I said, at an early age, like from the get-go, I was hearing all that music. So I just, from a real fundamental space, I relate to it. But to me, I think it's the like, what's the word? Levity of funk music. Is that where like things aren't taken real serious? Like, there are some songs like, what's going on and stuff like that are funky, that are serious. But most funk songs are like, hey, don't worry about that other stuff. Let's have a good time tonight. And I think I relate to that. And I think that when I go around traveling and playing music for people, I'm basically doing that. I'm throwing a party for people. And so I guess that's what I like the most about funk music, is it's almost always a positive vibe. You know, when you're doing like acoustic music or whatever, you never know. It could be a sad song, but whatever. There's probably not going to be a sad song at the Dumpster Funk show. You know what I mean? They're going to funk you to death, you know. I guess that's what I like about it, is the sort of, it's not too heavy. I like that kind of stuff too. It's just not my favorite thing.
Yeah. Of course, some of those, like you said, some of those Stevie Wonder songs had some, like one of my very favorites, Living for the City.
Oh yeah.
And
Black Man, very poignant song. There's people who can do it, but being a white guy, playing funk music, I don't know. I feel like I got to keep it light. I'm not trying to say anything too serious. I don't know. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
I feel like I wouldn't do a good job doing it. That's all.
And speaking of that, I mean, it's very interesting to me, how it seems like there's more, whites kind of carrying funk on right now, especially
that's what happened to reggae. That's what happened to jazz.
And blues. Yeah.
Blues. Yeah. You go to a blues festival, there's mostly white guys playing. And I think the only reason that is that probably more white folks grow up with their parents can buy them instruments or whatever. You know what I mean? I think that's all it is. I think a lot of people could play music if they wanted to, but they just never were exposed to having the opportunity or whatever, having instruments and lessons and all that kind of stuff.
It struck me as very odd when I experienced, I went to P-Funk shows and a lot of funk shows in the late 70s when I was a teenager. And it would be, often I was the only white person there. And, then come the late 80s into the 90s, those shows, especially like George Clinton, were like mostly white, like college age. And it had changed so much in terms of the demographics. It was just fascinating.
It's still like that with hip hop music and stuff too. You go to a Drake concert and it's mostly white folks, But, and that's when it comes to I've definitely had people ask me if they think I'm like appropriating kind of because I'm a white guy playing funk music, which, let's admit it, it wasn't like white folks who invented funk music, it was definitely like an African-American thing. But I don't think that I do. It's not like I'm up there with some accent or I'm trying to I don't know. I just feel like I'm just doing my thing without appropriating. I just tend to love music that's a certain kind of music that generally is made by a certain kind of person. I don't feel like I'm trying to be black or anything,
Ultimately, I mean, music has no color. I mean, if you can do it, you feel it, you can execute it, it's real,
That's what I think too. And that's why I get bummed out when people talk about certain artists. Some guys are kind of appropriating, but even people like Justin Timberlake get, people shit on them. And it's I don't get it. I don't think he's acting black or whatever. He just happens to like music that kind of sounds like Michael Jackson or whatever, and he dances well. So every time a white guy can dance well, it doesn't mean he's trying to be something he's not. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it can be a slippery slope, but
it can be. But I've definitely never had a black musician friend come up to me and be like, "Hey, you need to tone it down." I stay in my lane, man.
Yeah, No, you do it well. So appreciate all that you have done, for ears like mine. It's, such a welcome sound, and the band is so welcome in today's musical landscape. And just keep doing it, and I wish you much continued success, and hope the new record does well for you too.
Thanks, man. And next time you're on Spotify, check out my other band, Juno What. We've got a couple of records up there. You'll love it if you like Zapp and Roger.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I will check that out. And how can everyone keep in touch with what you have going on aside from Spotify?
I have a Facebook page, Joey Porter. It's like an artist page, and I have a Bandcamp, joeyporter.bandcamp or whatever it is. And I do instrumental stuff because I still play drums, I play bass, I play guitar, and I do some solo stuff where I'm playing all the instruments. You can check it out there on Bandcamp.
And who's your all-time dream to play with at some point? Herbie Hancock or somebody else?
I think it would be Herbie, but I would probably pick somebody else that's not a keyboard player. I don't know. Like my biggest fantasy was to play with Bernard Purdy, and then I got to play with him, so I got to fulfill that.
Oh wow!
Maybe it would be like Clyde Stubblefield or somebody like that. He's still alive, isn't he?
No.
Is J-Bo still alive?
No, they're both gone.
Dang it! So I don't know. Maybe Bootsy.
Oh yeah, there you go. Before I let you go, I did want to ask you, and I just remembered. What would you say was your most unforgettable live performance, or one or two, whether it was because the crowd was just unbelievable, or maybe your gear didn't show up, or whatever it was, what's one or two that just really stand out in your mind?
That's a good question. Well, my most memorable gigs are almost always the Red Rocks gigs that we get to do every year. We're lucky and fortunate enough to be able to headline Red Rocks every year, and that's always the best. But besides that, I'm trying to think of like a wacky story. I mean, we've definitely showed up and the weather's been inclement and our gear gets soaking wet. That kind of thing happens all the time. We've had people jump up on stage and do crazy things. But I guess to give you a generic answer, my favorite gig every year is Red Rocks. And it's because we are in front of our fans, and Red Rocks is positioned in such a way where, unlike any other place, when you're on stage, you're not looking down at the audience. Instead, the first row is right even with you, and it goes up from there. So it's like you're immersed in the people instead of looking down at them. That's my favorite gig every year is Red Rocks. And for that reason, you just feel like you're in the crowd. They're all looking down at you. It's really amazing.
I've been to Denver and Colorado many times, but I've never gotten to see a show there. It seems like whenever I go there, there's just no one playing at that particular time, but
right.
It's on my bucket list for sure.
I got to see Earth, Wind, and Fire with the Colorado Symphony there. I've seen some really cool shows there. I recommend coming out. Try to maybe plan a show plan a visit out here around a show that you see is coming up.
Yeah, I got to get out there for sure. All right. Hey, Joey, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, well, thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
Great to meet you, and hopefully we'll keep in touch.
Cool. Absolutely.
All right. Take good care.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkandstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkandstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkandstuff.net, and linking through funkandstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, Check out the media services section at funkandstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkandstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.